What about these masks that you see athletes wearing?
Yes.
They look like the guy from the Batman thing.
Yes.
And they're like restrictive breathing masks. If no one's ever seen them, they look almost like a scuba thing on your mouth, and they restrict, I guess, mouth breathing.
Okay.
I guess I should guess what you're going to say.
Very interesting thing.
Okay.
Okay. The thing about the masks is when they first come out in 2012, 2013, the whole premise is that they're simulating altitude training. They don't. Okay. I bought the masks at the time. I think any physics teacher could tell you that, right? But I had to test it out for myself. Right, okay. I bought the masks. I would be on a treadmill. I'm having my pulse oximetry on. I'm wearing the mask. My blood oxygen saturation dropping down to about 93%, not hypoxia. So the mask, wearing the mask by itself is pooling carbon dioxide. So it's very much a hypercapnic training. Now, it is actually very good to expose the body to high CO2, because it's CO2 which is the drive to breathe.
Okay.
So if you expose your body to higher pressure of carbon dioxide, this is forcing adaptations in the brain that your body is better able to cope with high CO2, and therefore your breathing and ventilation is going to be less. So the mask is doing two things. One is it's pooling carbon dioxide, but the other is it's resistance to breathing. Now I'll show you my own mask, and I'll talk about it this way.
Okay.
So with this, we use mask and we use it with the techniques. And the whole premise is, it does look like Batman or like Darth Vader.
What's that guy called?
So we have...
Bane, that was his name in Batman, right? Okay.
So there's two straps in terms of it, and literally you put the mask onto the face.
Okay. Wow.
And just turn around.
Wow. It's real.
And
you do look like you could be in Hollywood. Okay. And you're nose breathing. Nose breathing, of course. We never mouth breathe, right? Okay. All right.
Now, there's a valve here, and this valve is very restrictive, and it's designed to pool both carbon dioxide inside and the volume of the mask. Right. It's easier actually to do your physical exercise through the nose, and I better talk about why in a second.
Okay.
But with the mask also, we do breath holding, and we do simulate altitude training.
Okay.
So I do a combination. The mask is tough. Like we had guys at the weekend using the mask, and it's tough going. But this is where I need people to be persistent, because that's the training load.
Okay.
And you could say to the guys, well, I don't need to use a mask. Okay, let's say if you don't want to use a mask, start doing your physical exercise breathing through your nose. Your nose is imposing a resistance to your breathing that's 2 to 3 times that of the mouth. And by imposing a resistance to your breathing, you're not going to get rid of carbon dioxide as quickly. So you are going to feel more of an air hunger. So if you do physical exercise with your mouth closed, you'll feel more of an air shortage. This is good, because what it's doing is it's increasing CO2 in the blood, and over a period of time will force the body to make adaptations that the body can cope better with the higher CO2 levels.
How much time? Months?
6 to 8 weeks. I would say definitely 8 weeks. Now, there was a paper by a professor from one of the universities in the States, Dallam, D-A-L-L-A-M, and he did a really interesting study. It was published last year. He got a group of 10 athletes. 10, I'm not sure if they were athletes or recreational, and he trained them for 6 months nasal breathing. And then he decided to measure them after the adaptations had taken place. See, there are a few papers. They get a group of people and they say, okay, I'm going to test you now exercising with your mouth open. And now I'm going to test you exercising with the mouth closed. But it's a completely unfair test because no adaptations have taken place.
Okay, understood.
What Dallam did was he trained them specifically for nose breathing for 6 months. And he asked, what happens when you breathe exclusively through the nose for a period of 6 months? What adaptations take place in the body? Here's a couple. One is their tolerance of CO2 increased dramatically from 40 millimeters of mercury pressure to 44 millimeters of mercury. This is good because the air hunger was reducing. In other words, it was very tough at the start. You're feeling extreme air hunger. You keep doing your physical exercise with the mouth closed, the air hunger diminishes. So your ability to go harder, is much better. Economically, there was 22% less ventilation. So when they put them on, they tested them using a GXT, which is a maximum test. They had the athletes who were nasal breathing, who were trained, had 22% less breathing. They could achieve the same work rate intensity with 22% less breathing. That's a huge saving because there's a cost associated with supporting the respiratory muscles. And I would say for any endurance athlete, it's vitally important. Look at that study and start breaking it down.
Right.
Yes, it's tougher at the start, and it's the same premise of the mask. Like we know with the mask that your CO2 can increase to about 55 millimeters of mercury pressure. That's high. With nasal breathing, it's probably coming up to 44, 45. That also is very, very beneficial. So the mask and the nose are similar in terms of a hypercapnic response, exposing the body to high CO2, and CO2 is the drive to breathe. So if you can force your body to cope with higher CO2 levels, your breathing is lighter. Now, if your breathing is lighter, you're not wasting as much energy supporting the breathing muscles. As we sit here, 2 to 3% of our oxygen consumption is going to support our breathing muscles. If we do moderate exercise, it's about 6%. If we do fairly intense exercise, it's 10%. And if we do maximum exercise, it's 13 to 15%. That's only to support the breathing muscles. Your breathing muscles, the demands on them is incredible. You know, we think of the lungs. We never really give it the credit. Like if you have an athlete going at a fairly decent pace, that athlete can be taking 100 to 150 liters of air per minute. That's what the lungs are capable of handling. And we're expecting the lungs to be able to distribute oxygen adequately from the lungs into the blood, and we're expecting the blood to be able to release this oxygen adequately to the tissues. And that's where we want to refine and tune breathing to increase oxygen uptake, but also to reduce ventilation, because as in Dallam's paper, if you can breathe 22% lighter, you're far more economical and you're going to be better in terms of endurance.